Good evening, guys, and welcome to the Go Fish Weekly Wrap-Up, hosted here at Lawrence Headquarters down here on Mahatma Gandhi Street. We've got the brains trust of electronics and Lawrence and Sonar with us tonight. We've got technical manager here of Lawrence, John Minnie, with us. John, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hosting us here, man. We've got the Codfather, Mr. Mick Clark, a long-time supporter of Go Fish and someone we regard as definitely part of the family here at Go Fish. So, Mick, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. Great to be along tonight. Can't wait.
100%. And thanks for making the trip up from the dirty south of Umkomaas there. And then, obviously, we've got Byron Kane from Go Fish and Hurricane Adventures, BK. Yes. Shot for making the trip, bro.
Hi, everyone. Evening.
Unfortunately, Ali and Brennan couldn't be with us tonight, but they'll definitely be joining us for next week's show. And so tonight we're going to be going through looking at introducing the Lowrance units, the different models in the Lowrance units. We're going to be looking at the terminology and what the terminology means and how that helps you in fishing. Because there's a lot of guys that don't really understand the terminology behind what these units all provide. So we're going to be obviously explaining the terminology and how that improves your fishing and what it can do for you. And then we're going to be going into the ideal units. Mick's going to be covering that for kayaks and jet skis. And then Byron's going to come in with John with regards to the ski boats, the ideal units for that, and the benefits thereof. And then Mick's going to do something on a bit of maintenance of your Lowrance units to make sure that they last the test of time. And guys, this is part one of a series that we're going to be doing going forward. Electronics is something that I think we can all learn from. It's a subject that no matter how versed you are in your electronics, you can always learn something. So we're going to start off with the basics tonight, and we're going to slowly move into more and more technical stuff as we go. So just as before we jump into the technical side of things, we had the Belito monthly mug this last weekend on Sunday that one of our guys, Alistair France, fished in. Ali and his mates, one of his mates, Oren Kruger and Vernon Francis Butt, fished the monthly mug together with Graham Ludwig and a whole lot of other Belito Ski Boat Club members. Not too many fish came out on Sunday. Unfortunately, the conditions weren't great. You were out there, BK, on Sunday.
No, definitely it wasn't pleasant, but yeah, it's always good to be on the water though. And yeah, the guys did well. I saw they got some nice fish and got some good garrick as well. And, released a lot of fish as well. So again, that's what it's all about with the gentleman of the sea. It's to have a good fight and let him go to fight another day.
100%. So we've got Graham Ludwig here that we've got on screen that got a 21.7 kilo tuna and won the monthly mug on Sunday with a great fish. I think it was the only tuna that came out that day. And Graham managed to bag himself one. Then you've got Oren Kruger, who was with Ellie, fishing with Ellie up the north coast, just north of Belito. And I think it was also around the Zimbali area as well, that they came down and got, I think they got 6 garrick, some really good garrick as well, some bombers. Oren Kruger got one. There's Ellie with a lovely garrick there as well. And Oren again with another bomber. The boys having a good fight there. There's Oren boxing, and then there's Oren, Ellie, and Vernon France there with a lovely fish. So yeah, fun was had by all on Sunday while fishing with Ellie there with Belito. Guys, yeah, we've also got some prizes sponsored by Mick from the Codfather. He's sponsoring some Fish Finder covers tonight for the person that comes up with the best questions. So guys, get your questions and ask them on the feed, and then we'll watch the feed for the questions, and we'll try and get through most of them tonight. If we don't get through most of them tonight, we'll address those that we haven't got to tomorrow morning or throughout the day tomorrow, and we'll try and make sure that we get to all those questions. The best question will be decided on by the panel, and we will then give that prize away. Okay, so make sure you get your questions in, chaps. Yeah, bit of Egyptian handshake from Byron there. Just put some money in the bank and you got a cover. Guys, and then before we jump into the technical side of Fish Finders, I want to show you how they did it back in the day. All this new technology, kak, and all that sort of thing that we've got here, this top of the range stuff, the marks, the chirp, sonar. This is how we did it back in the day, chaps. So this was me fishing last week Wednesday off of Amkamas, off a mate of mine's boat, Carl Hutchison, on a skivvy. Bear in mind, I'm slightly overweight, balance is not great, got a lot rolling around on the hips here, had a bit of a chop on the ocean, low gunnels on that skivvy, and this is what happened. But this is how fish finding was done back in the day. Check it out. Getting a pull. And speaking of pulls, oh shit!
But I thought you were going to pull out the old Calvin Hughes paper finder.
Oh, the paper finder, yeah.
We were talking about it the other day, sorry, to digress slightly. We were talking about it the other day. I've still got my dad's Calvin Hughes paper finder.
John's got one.
We were talking about it, and I was a latte. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old.
This, man.
Oh, there we go. That was the upgrade.
There's something special.
Yeah,
that is incredible, guys.
That's the old paper graph, you know.
So let me just tell you what the guys used to do, because if you think we typed today, we were special type then. So it used to be, and this might be different, but it was like a thermal paper, and the paper was very, very expensive. So what the guys used to do is they used to set the reading right at the bottom of the paper. So they would only use half the screen, basically, only the bottom half to see it. And when it was finished, they would unroll it, turn it around, and reload it. So then you'd have all your old reading across the top, and then you could use another reading, so you get double the life out of the paper. But yeah,
that's
those things were awesome. And those were the days of throwing a marker buoy and drifting, because obviously there was no GPSs. So you would go along sounding, and the guys had landmarks. I mean, I don't know how they did it. Fishing at night, even the guys had landmarks, guys like Dave Beatty and that. And they would literally say, right, we're coming onto it, and you're watching, there's no GPS, so you're just watching the finder, and there came the reef and the showing and that, and the guys would anchor and they'd come back and you'd see on the sun you're sitting on the reef. So I mean, those guys,
that's incredible.
Just at another level. I mean, really unbelievable.
Do you know much about these old finders?
No, not too much. No.
I'd love to know what the delay would be between the actual reading and.
There was the needle comes over and it goes like shh, 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 shh. like balls up. So when you're going like very slowly, like dead slow, because otherwise, like John was saying earlier, he said otherwise the actual showing is from about 100 meters behind you. It was amazing. It was a good story.
I think these things came out when Noah needed them there to try and get those Marlin on 2x2 onto that.
That was in like probably about 1980, around there.
That's incredible.
80,
Unbelievable.
82, 84. Look where we are now.
Exactly. Well, we've come a hell of a long way from this here to where we are today. And we were just chatting about it earlier, just with regards to technology, how it's advanced, and you were bringing up something quite interesting, Mick, with regards to what you're paying for certain units, where you were paying $6,000 for a unit back 3 years ago. You're now paying $2,500-3,000 for that same kind of technology and unit, and now your sort of unit's gone up a bit. But just explain to us something on that. I mean, it's nice topic
Slightly
to touch
different, Kirk, to the way you said it there. I think what we were prepared to spend on an entry-level unit was $6,000, $6,500, where now we're being tempted with an entry-level unit, which is 2,700, 3,100. So we actually getting introduced to electronics much better value now.
Yeah, sure.
So instead of spending more money, some guys are actually spending less. So that's the idea. What we're trying to do is tell you the benefit of the more expensive unit. So hopefully,
or spend the same and get more.
Definitely,
basically, that's the thing. So you can now for $6,000, instead of getting entry level, you're getting like sort of 1 up or 2 up on it. So. And with it, which comes obviously with more benefits and features.
And we also try and cater for every angler's pocket. Not everyone can afford the top of the range, so we try and incorporate some of the features into the smaller units, which the guys have been asking for, and that way we can get the whole range across.
Look, and we spoke about earlier also just on application, because I think application is key, because it's, I mean, you can spend the $2,000 or $3,000, but again, if you wanting to go, and I'm just using a random example, if you're going to go and fish in 100 meters of water, and fish on the bottom, that's not the right unit. So, I think that's key, is also just to understand what your application is, and then go and look to find the right units, or what your options are that are within those parameters, so that you can get, to deliver for you. I think that's crucial. I think a lot of guys who are disappointed, it's really because they've got the wrong unit for the application that they actually wanted for.
Guys, 100%. And so we're going to get straight into this. We've got some really nice information ready for you guys. Get your questions ready, because we've already got a really good question from Gareth Jones, which we'll get to shortly. Gareth, thanks very much for that opening question. We're going to get into the terminology side of, the intro of the units. Let's get into the intro of the units first. You've got 3 different ranges here. What have you got here, John?
So what we have is we refer to as good, better, and best. So the hook range, there's the 4 units at the back there. We do them in a 4-inch, a 5-inch, a 7, and a 9, and those units can do the basic stuff. So you can do live charting. Live charting we incorporated into the hook reveal models, which the older hook range didn't have, which the guys were asking for. And another popular feature is the fish reveal, which takes 2D sonar and overlays it onto structure. So you can have the best of both worlds, especially on the smaller screens. It's nice to overlay it so that you can get the best of both worlds. And then also we have, so every unit from the hook unit up, everything that I'm going to explain, the next range up has it included and more. So when we look at the TR
do you want to go over terminology first, so that the guys understand what you're talking about when you're going over units?
We can do that.
Okay, so let's cover that. Sorry guys, let's go one step back here. Let's go over something, mapping. Let's take mapping for instance.
Okay, so there's 2 different things we look at. We look at a chart plotter and we look at a GPS. A lot of people think they are the same, but they're not. A GPS is a blank white background. So you can go from point A to B, and there's no reference to land or water or anything. It's just it's a GPS.
And contours when you have
correct. So the basic entry level comes with that, and then when we go up, then we start doing mapping, where we can actually take Navionics maps or sea maps, or we can take a blank SD card and use the live feature and create our own maps as we're traveling.
So maybe just for a layman to touch on the map. So when John's talking about maps, he's actually talking about underwater maps of the actual seabed.
The reefs
and the reefs net, which have been built up over time through different technology. But essentially what it's doing is it's going to show you depth changes, and it's going to also show you where the contours, so if you're looking at contours on land, at a mountain, at a cliff, your lines would come closer together. The same thing underwater, your depth lines come closer together, and then that determines where there might be a ledge, or if you've got a circle coming close together, where there's a pinnacle, so it's underwater mountain from another. So that's just what we're talking about when we're talking about an actual sort of chart. It's actually showing you underwater, not in high detail. As things are moving forward, it does get into more and more detail, and obviously the more you pay, the better the cards you get. But then that is also where then the mapping comes in, because that starts updating that actual map that you have bought, that you've got on your system.
And
so
how
just
that-
from a layman point of view.
How that chart plotter helps you fishing a new area is vital.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there you can go out. If you don't have many marks going and fishing a place northern Mozambique, you can use your charts to be able to see where you should be fishing according to contours and where they're gathering nice and close together. You can see, okay, right, well, that's obviously a ledge or a drop off or whatever.
30 meters, there's
Yeah.
going to be a ledge there to show you the depths also. You know, that, you know, I have to fish close to shore, I can get into deep water quite quickly, or hell, if I want to fish in 40 meters of water, I've got to travel 10 or 15 or 20 k's, you know, and then plan your trip accordingly. Yeah.
And then your live mapping also helps you there, John,
Correct.
as well.
So what we can do is we can record our own maps and save them onto an SD card, or we can take an existing Navionics map and then overlay those sonar charts onto our existing map.
Yeah.
So we'll have a much
It's just updated.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
More accurate, yeah. So you might find on some of the maps because they've, I mean, it's obviously a huge, you're trying to cover the world, is that there'll be some accuracy where they're slightly out, but it could be like 50 meters, 100 meters, and you come there trawling, and that's the beauty of the live, of mapping, where it's updating now. It's actually improving the map all the time, and the more you're going over a reef, the better and better and better it's building that up and giving you a better picture of that whole structure around it. Then you can start thinking in your head where you think you should be fishing. And over and above that, then you're looking at your sonar, which is your sounder, and seeing where the fish are as well. So you've got two references now to see, well, okay, now I'm coming off the ledge now. Oh, there's the fish. They're sitting off the ledge, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's unbelievable technology.
And guys might not think that the live mapping thing helps. We'll move on to the next subject. But the guys might not think that, oh, well, live mapping, is it really a big thing and what? But when you consider, if you take into account, you think of it logically, the sea is changing all the time. You've got currents, you've got swell, you've got wind, all that sort of thing. So your reef off of Ponta, let's take Atlantis for instance, which runs all the way up the north coast and up to Tekabadini. That same reef is covered in places and then is uncovered in other places and is covered in, so as those currents move and change, that more of that reef might be exposed.
correct.
And then what will happen is you'll go there now and a section of maybe 500 meters of that reef is covered. 2 months time, you go and live map that place. Oh, geez, hang on. Well, this is an exposed ledge or whatever that wasn't here before. Now all of a sudden the fish are holding on. So there is a massive benefit to that live mapping feature.
And also, sorry, just to add to that, the Navionics is not just a fishing map with a fishing layer, it's also a safety thing. So all the new MPAs, you know, exposed rocks, any of all that
Danger.
information is on the chart as well.
True,
so
yeah.
it's not just for fishing, it's a safety factor as well.
Yeah. Then we move into sonar. We're talking about stuff like chirp sonar and that. Give us a bit of a sort of...
Okay, so if we look at the units like the TI and the hook reveal, those units we called that can chirp. So basically what it does, it chirps 20 frequency below the actual frequency, kilohertz below the actual frequency, and 20 above. So you don't have the full range of chirp like you do on an HDS, which has got 2 dedicated 1 kilowatt chirp channels. So you're still getting the
Right,
best of
lost
both.
So what does that mean? What does that mean and what does that do for a fish?
Okay, so
Give us the
let me try and
bottom
explain
line.
it in
What does
layman's
do?
terms. So 200 kilohertz is the general frequency for fishing.
Yes.
So whereas the bottom might show better at 180 kilohertz, but fish display better at 220, they've gone for a happy medium in the middle.
Yeah.
For from 180 to 220.
Okay.
So we go for 200 kilohertz. That's how we've been fishing
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So now what we're actually doing is we're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting the best bottom and we're getting the best target separation on the fish itself. So that's where we try and chirp on that 40
Okay,
frequency
so
range.
it's pulling in both those sort of bands.
Correct.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
combining
Okay.
it into one. So it's running multiple frequencies at the same time and not just
Okay,
picking
giving you
one
one picture.
frequency.
Right.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
and
Best
it's
picture.
actually pinging more often as
Correct,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
To give you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Fish reveal.
Okay, so fish reveal for the guys that don't understand, down scan and side scan imaging, like we do have on the Active Imaging 3-in-1 that's sold with most TIs and HDSs. So it gives you a three-dimensional picture of the bottom. So the down scan is to find the structure. It shows the structure the best. So and the sonar we just overlay on top of that, so we can see exactly where the fish are hiding in those little holes on the bottom of the ocean.
More shallow water, freshwater
Yes.
application.
So the fish reveal is
Yeah.
only because we're running such high frequency, we compromise depth capabilities. So the frequency, the downscan
Okay.
side will only work up to about 50 meters in the ocean.
Okay.
Still,
And
still
then- yeah.
reasonable.
Still, that is
still,
reasonable,
if
yeah.
you're
You know,
looking at
most of the
wrecks.
wrecks are all
Ah,
close up,
yeah,
so you
yeah.
can see the rails of the ships, and you can the detail is so great that you can make out.
It's almost like underwater video.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So then we just taken the best of both worlds and just overlaid them on top of each other.
Okay.
Especially when you're looking at smaller screen sizes. When you start splitting the screen from downscan to sonar and chart, it's good to have overlay so you can save one page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, lost you there as well.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just again, layman, I think talking, if you're splitting screens, you've got like your sonar, then you've got your down scan, and then you've got your
Yes.
chart, and now you've only got a screen that big, so now to try and see where you're moving on a chart, it's difficult. So you want to, if you can put the one on top of each other, overlay,
Exactly, you're
then
saving
you
space.
only got two
Yeah.
splits, so then you've got half screen for
Hence the reason why guys get two.
a lot of, yeah,
Two
I mean,
units,
a lot of,
yeah.
if you can
Yeah.
afford it,
Well,
obviously.
all those technologies weren't available
Yeah.
you know, 10 years
that's
ago.
Yeah,
so
100%. Yeah.
now we got to incorporate everything inside the unit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. So we've crossed the terminology. Let's get into the units now, John.
Okay, so as I was explaining, that the hook range is what we call our good range. That is for the weekend warrior that fishes a little bit of game fish once a year when he comes down on holiday with his family. He's not asking too much out of the unit. It doesn't have as much power as what an Elite or an HDS would have. It will show you the bait, it will show you some game fish, and it will get you on the water, and you can go on.
Works, does the job.
It does the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And it's not an inferior unit, it's just
No.
less power, but the detail is still there.
Yeah.
We concentrate on the detail. So when we go over to the TI, it's got everything the hook has, but it can do a little bit more. So now we're talking about NEMA 2000 add-ons, like the music systems, everything gets controlled. So what we would call this is a MFD, a multifunctional display. So it's not just a GPS and a fish finder, it allows everything on the boat to be controlled through the unit. So our music system, your USB or your play, your select, your amplifier, everything comes up on the screen, and you change everything on the unit.
Okay.
And then
So it's
obviously,
like a remote control, basically.
correct.
On a touch
And
screen.
this is a 600 watt unit, so that will run most of your HST DFSPLs, the 5200 skimmers, which you're going to cover a bit later. This is the kind of unit you go for.
And your phone as well. Can
Yes,
do
and
messages and
And these units, the TI can connect wirelessly to each other. So if you're running one transducer, you can have two units, and it can talk wirelessly to each other and share that information. It can share the charts, it can share the waypoints, it can share the sonar.
And what's the benefits of that for a fisherman? Having those wireless, being able to talk to each other.
Well, normally
updates
it's
as well,
generally
right?
on bass boats and deep sea boats. The guys like two units, one
Yeah.
dedicated for
Charts and
for
mapping.
charts and the other one for
Yeah.
sonar.
Yeah.
So back in the day we had the standalone GPSs, but there's so many apps available these days that you have to offer something more inside of a unit than just mapping.
I think wireless is good for updates as well. It makes it's
Correct.
easier to do
Yeah.
the updates on the unit.
Correct.
And then we go into the HDS.
Yeah, and then we go to the HDSs. Obviously, as you can see behind me here, that's the big boy, the HDS 16 Live. So those the 12 and the 16 come with quad-core processors. So that means better target separation, better definition, better clarity. And that unit is open to everything. The HDS, we can load autopilots, we can do radars, we can do almost anything that you can add onto a boat can be displayed on an HDS.
So again, I think that's where it all comes back to application. So it's about understanding in your world as an angler. What do I need? How am I fishing? Where am I fishing? And then that will talk back to you, and then scale down to like, right, these are your sort of 3 or 4 or 5 options that you can then look at.
Correct.
And then I think then you're going to be happy, with what you get. It's not about just going for the top of the range if you if you're not going to use 50% or 60% of the benefits, rather get something that's going to work for you at the end of the day.
100%. So we've got a question here just on the actual TR units here from Sean Nievenhuis. Guys, I am going to be on the subjects, the questions that are asked on the subjects we'll cover first, and then we'll get to the others as we go. So he's got a 7-inch TR that I used on my boat and jet ski. Last weekend it was cold and wet on the ski. After a while, touchscreen becomes unresponsive, but works again for a while. For a while after restarting the unit.
Okay, so there's a few things that we look at because the TIs is a single touchscreen. It's not a dual touchscreen like an HDS. So when the screen gets wet with salt water and that salt dries on the screen, it will create a false touch and it won't respond.
Okay.
So it's always a good thing, especially for the guys in the kayaks. If you have the TIs, just carry a bottle of fresh water with you just to clean the screen. Because once that salt dries, then the touch
It's like
screen
holding your finger on the screen.
exactly.
Basically.
So
if
that
you're
is
touching
exactly
anything,
what
it
it
doesn't-
does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the TI as well, and I mean, I've had the same issue with it as well on the jet ski. So on the boat, the unit's obviously in a console and that sort of thing, so it's not getting exposed as much as it does on the jet ski. And that is, I've got a cloth with me, and I'll just give the screen I've got one of those soft cloths, and I'll just give it a quick wipe.
Microfiber.
Yeah, microfiber. But again, guys, it does go back to, and let's be honest, that's why we're on the show here. It goes back to the right application. So, on the boat it's 100%. On the jet ski, if you're picking a unit, then I'd probably steer away from that unit, to be brutally honest, and look at one of the other options there. If maybe not a touch screen, because on jet skis the units are exposed and they do get a lot of water dumped on their screen, especially if the weather's not good. So, then in that case, maybe the hook is probably a better option, or I think the Lave's touchscreen is another next level up, so that can handle water on. It's a two touch screen, so it doesn't matter if there's water on it. So it's just about getting the right unit for the application as well, or working around. I mean, like I say, I've got a cloth.
The TI is a single touch. It can work with water.
Yeah.
It's the salt that dries on the screen that causes the problem,
It's
not the
corners
water.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got Gareth Campbell here that's asked a question. Is there a link or manual that explains how to use C mapping or Genesis mapping on the Elite TR?
Yes, I can forward that to anyone. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got a little booklet that I can send out to whoever needs it.
So Gareth, send us a message on our GoFish Facebook page. Drop us a message on there. Rather make it a PM instead of a message on the actual link here. Make it a personal message, and then send it to us, and we'll send that link over to you once we get it from John here.
Kirk, I'm sure we can cover that in another episode as
Yeah.
well.
There's a lot of stuff that's being asked here, guys, which we, for instance, like how to install transducers and all that sort of thing. This is just the start of a series that we're going to be doing going forward. So it might not be covered tonight, but definitely in the next couple of episodes, we'll definitely run into it and do it. We're going to try to do one of these once a month, a strictly electronics dedicated show every Thursday. So you better tune in for that once a month on a Thursday. All right, we've gone over those units. Let's now look at the ideal units for kayak and jet ski. Mick and John, I think you guys can sort of lead on this. You've installed a lot of units, Mick, in your time in kayaks and jet skis. You fished off kayaks and jet skis. So I don't think there's anyone better to give us the correct info than you on this.
Yeah, definitely, Kirk. I think we're going back to where we started originally, that it's not just about how much you can invest in a unit, it's getting the right unit for the application. So mentioned earlier the TI2, there was a problem with the touchscreen. To be fair, that is a brilliant unit for a jet ski, but fast forwarding to now, it might not be the best unit. So we've learned something from it. We point out that could be an issue. Let's try and deal with it. If not, there's other units available. But over the time I've been fitting units, what I would say is, and I'm going to repeat quite a lot we've said already, if you're coming to the coast and you're only fishing once or twice a year, it's just for your holiday, the hook range is absolutely perfect for those applications. But if you want something more than a basic chart plotter, then you look at the hook reveal range. But I think one of the most important points for me is, if you've got a chart plotter and you've took the time to save lots of waypoints, so you've marked bait, you've marked a few pinnacles, you've marked a drop off or something, you have to bear in mind that at some point you could lose those waypoints. So that's when that would encourage me to upgrade straight away. The fact that you can back up to a SD card, take the SD card out, look
That's
after
with
that.
me. It doesn't leave my body. Here's my SD card with all my marks on.
100%.
That was actually a bad.
Yeah, that was a bad
My
one.
phone-
You're gonna get
probably
mugged.
gonna-
You're
probably
gonna get.
gonna
Show me,
get
show me,
mugged. So
show me,
yeah,
show me.
they're my SD cards in the cover of the back
You're
of
gonna
my
get
phone.
mugged at I'm strongest keyboard club next time you go for a look
maybe
there.
it wasn't the best.
But I have to say, Byron, you only lose those waypoints once, and
Yeah,
that's it. I
exactly.
mean, some guys have got like 10,000, or
Yeah.
you know.
I-
But a great little tip is, you know, that is still a great unit. Let's not get away from it. And if that's what's stopping you, and you know, you don't really want to upgrade. Just last week, I thought, why don't you just take some photographs with your phone? We've all got phones. You can back it up to the cloud. Just go through those waypoints, even if there's 50. Take a photograph of them, and then you've got your own sort of little backup, you know. But so that's the units for. I'd say for kayaks, they're the perfect unit. But if you want to get more into the mapping, then move to the. I think the 5-inch reveal now is becoming the go-to unit for kayaks. You know, guys must aim towards that. Look beyond the hook range, and you know, start getting some benefit out of these units. Start getting more benefit out of them. And then certainly for the jet ski range, jet skis definitely the unit takes more punishment. I think we all sort of know that. The hook reveal for me is the minimum range. You should be absolute minimum. But then work towards the HDS range. That HDS 7, you've got one, Byron, I've got one. That really is a premium product, you know.
Yeah.
We've got two card slots there, so we can back everything up. We can have the maps in there. It really is a great unit. Whichever unit you use, whether it's the low range or the top of the range, protect them. We mentioned the covers earlier. That for me, whichever vessel you're on, apart from a ski boat, that is a brilliant thing to keep that unit. And I have to tell you that over the years, Lowrance have replaced so many units with, it's not their fault, it's our fault, you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident if we dropped it from a helicopter into the sea, these guys would probably replace it. But it's not convenient for me, it's not convenient for the viewers, it's not convenient for Lowrance. Let's protect them in the first place. So a little bit later we'll talk about that anyway. But they're the sort of ideal units, I would think, Kirk, yeah.
Cool. We've got a question on covers here from Gareth Jones. What about covers? We were going to get into that anyway with regards to the maintenance and whatever, but I'm sure we can get into that now because we were just chatting about the touchscreen and that.
Sure, yeah.
These covers here, give us a bit of a breakdown on the covers and also in relation to the actual software getting on the screens and that, and how you'd utilize it properly.
Before you start, I just want to cover, you know, the guys with the paddle skis and the jet skis, those units are on the skis when they go through the surf. And we're not concerned about water coming onto the unit.
Yeah.
We're concerned about pressure.
Yeah.
You know, if you punch a wave, that pressure of that wave is much greater than the IPX7 rating, you know, 1 meter for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's where the watertight, you know, integrity of the unit will be compromised, is that. So if you can protect the unit just going through the surf, you know, you should be fine when you're out.
It's a very good point.
It's even like packing it away or just wrapping it up, having it, just don't have it up when you're going out. I mean, I think most of the paddle ski guys, I think, don't have them out. I mean, generally,
No,
just because in case they get smoked and get smashed up the beach or something like that. But I know like 95% of jet ski guys do have them out. But like I said the other morning, on a jet ski, let's try not to hit waves, you know.
Yeah,
Shouldn't really be hitting a wave on a jet ski, but it does happen, especially on shore break. I mean, when you're launching at the guys with steep beaches, Salmon Bay, and that sort of thing, you know, that first caution in the morning, you know, if you get caught out with a wave there, you're going through it, and to your point, you know, it's this much water coming down at a rate, so it's going to put a lot of pressure on the units.
That's where these covers that make you come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree. John took the words out of my mouth. The protection for the unit is not, you know, if it gets a little bit of salt water on it, that's not the issue. The issue is going through the waves. So whichever vessel we're on, a kayak or a jet ski or a small ski boat, the fish finder is usually right in front of you. It's such a valuable tool, you know. We want it there. We want it available all the time. Unfortunately, from the forward angle, that's right where the water's going to come up. So when we're coming through the surf, guess what's right in there? Especially a jet ski, let's face it. So basically the cover is just protecting the electronics at the back. Because what used to happen quite often was it won't fail then. You'll go home, you'll switch it off, and it'll actually be the next time you go out. I would say, you blame the unit. Hey, this unit won't switch on. But it was actually from the previous time you went through the surf.
Yeah.
So definitely through the surf, keep the unit on. And definitely, if the sea's rough, keep it on. But if it's a flat day, take it off. You don't have to keep it on there all the time. Yeah. But I think you'll see that most guys who've got these now, and if we go to an event, if you look on the vessels, they've got them on. They're not new. I think Stealth probably were the first ones to make them years ago, and we just we just picked up on them. But I think when the jet skis took off, these have took off as well, because they really are in the way in a jet ski. You get a lot of water in there.
No, you got one for Kirk as well, because on the paddle ski, I mean, he's getting hit every time he goes up.
I think we should just cover Kirk in a huge cover. Yeah.
No, I think I need one of those for my pip. So when I fall over off the side of the boat, it can be. We've got a question here from Sean Dazrath. I hope I pronounced that right, Sean. How's the guys battling to get bottom readings on my Seacat above 5 kilometers an hour? Have moved the transducer lower with little success. Any ideas?
Okay, so when a transducer doesn't ping up when you're traveling, it's only placement. There's nothing else that can be wrong but placement. If you're getting a reading when you're standing still and you're not getting a reading when you're moving, you have to adjust that transducer. So just a quick way of figuring out whether the transducer needs to go higher or lower. So what we do is we'll mount a transducer on the transom, take the thickness of the transducer, cut it in half, and put that in line with the bottom of the hull. So what we're trying to achieve is when you look from the front of the boat, you need to be able to see that transducer. That will make sure we're getting a good flow of water over the face.
100%.
You can put it a little bit heel heavy to force clearer water onto the transducer. But what we do is we'll lock either full starboard and see what the reading looks like. And if it improves, we know it needs to go lower.
Okay.
If we do a full to the port and it improves, we know the transducer needs to
obviously
be lifted
with
higher.
your transducer on the port
On the starboard side.
Starboard side.
On
Sorry,
the
starboard
starboard
side.
side, yes.
Yeah.
John,
So
just one
that's
other
a quick
thing.
way
though.
of checking it.
One other thing I've come across is when you have to select the transducer in the menu, guys have got the wrong transducer
That's another
sometimes.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't select the right transducer right up front in the setup, then also it affects the read. So it'll affect the read. So when you are stationary, I've been on someone else's boat I got on and it wasn't set up good. You could get a reading stationary as soon as you start, but it was very thin. And as soon as you started moving, then obviously you lost bottom. So
The newer ones auto select, don't they?
All of the new ones auto select the transducer. So that the 9-pin transducer we refer to as an XID, it's an automatic identification of the transducer, because a lot of people don't know that you had to select the transducer to get the full performance out of it.
So with that
Makes
plug on
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. The 9-pin. Yeah.
So while we're on the subject of transducers, quickly, let's go on to this skim transducer that we've got here from Lawrence. Excuse me, guys. Honestly, this is a game changer for your ski boats and jet skis specifically. It can pick up the bottom at up to 40 k's an hour. It's unbelievable. So we'll explain to you after this video why it is so efficient and how it can help you in your fishing as well. And also the placement of the transducer. So Byron, before we go into this, Byron hasn't got the transducer on the right side of the boat.
I like a challenge. So I like to be difficult.
He hasn't got the transducer. I think
I
maybe
think-
one too many tipples at Umhlanga Ski Boat Club there.
I'll be honest. I
When
mean,
he
I
was
think
installing it.
I must have had that unit now probably 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Because it's a Gen 3, HDS7 Gen 3. So I think I actually installed it myself, and I didn't know at the time that it had to be on the starboard. But yeah, it's on the port side. But again, going back to what John was saying, those where it's on the port or starboard, that's probably going to give you like an even more improvement from an end motor noise as well, and obviously.
But this,
Let's have a
this
look
is
at
just
the video.
a ski boat though, we're
Yeah.
outboard.
Yeah.
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 Let's have a look at the video, and then we'll explain why it's on the wrong side and where it needs to be put and how it's installed. gives you a good idea.
Transducer down. So the biggest thing here though for me, so if you just want to have a quick look here, you can actually see how it's mounted. John told me it's on the wrong side. He said it should actually be on the starboard side. But luckily for me it is working. The reason why it's meant to be on the starboard side is your prop wash actually washes this way. Because if you're thrusting your props turning clockwise, so it throws the water out the side, so which could then affect the reading. But the key thing is that your transducer is lower than your hull, at the base of your hull. So when it's up, it's fine, it's above. But when you put it down, it actually protrudes below, and that ensures that there's no bubbles get underneath there. So you'll see when I'm traveling at the 35-40 k's an hour, I'm getting a clear reading on the bottom, which is very important when you're looking for bait, and also when you're fishing in areas that you don't know that well, because you'll pick up a lot of new reef. And even here in Durban, we end up picking up new reef.
Okay, so that's a video on Byron's skimmer and how it helps him with regards to his fishing. John, let's get a bit of information from you on the skimmer. Obviously, we know that you've now said that obviously it was in the wrong place. Byron also brought it up that he said he was in the wrong place. Tell us why and how to effectively position that transducer so you get the best out of it.
Okay, so there's two things we look at, all three things. If you've got counter rotation, it doesn't really matter which side on the boat it is. So if you want to put it on the left, it's fine. The reason why we put it on the starboard side is we want the prop to push water bubbles over the transducer, not under the transducer. As you all know, air is a transducer's worst enemy. And also because both motors are turning clockwise, the torque of the boat is pushing that transducer to the deepest part of the water.
Right, yeah.
So the left and specifically on your boat will always lie with the left side higher than the right side when you're on power, unless you obviously play with the trims. But that's the reason behind it, is that will always be the deepest part of the boat. So when we look for transducer installations, we try and move away from stepped holes. We try and move away from chimes. You don't want to put a transducer in line with the chime, because those little chimes make the tiniest air bubbles that will keep running underneath the transducer. So when you're looking down the hole, you're looking for a flat piece of hull and you're looking for clear water, and that's all we're looking for.
It's a great tip on installing those transducers and making sure that you get the best reading out of them. Now, Mick, we're going to go into a bit of the maintenance. So why don't you, or have you got one or two, the other transducers that you've got? Yeah, let's run through one or two of these transducers you've got here quickly.
I think it'd be a good idea to look at a few transducers, Kirk. So for anybody who hasn't seen a lot of transducers, we're basically starting from this little chap, which you would get on the hook 4. So it's a tiny little transducer, but again, we get great imaging off that one, up to these big giant 3-in-1s, which are coming with the HDS 7 now. So obviously there's huge benefits to having this type of transducer, but problems come with this as well. So if we're looking at something like a jet ski, what I found on a jet ski is if we go into the letter of the law, like John said, and we're having the transducer under the hull, as we hit the beach, there's a bit of an obvious problem there. So although this is a fantastic transducer, maybe it's not the best one for a jet ski, unless you put it on a slide mount where you can move it up and down. And again, we didn't know that at the time. We didn't know when we installed them, but as we install them and find these things, but then all of a sudden, the 5200 skimmer transducer comes along, and the wire comes out the front of this one. So for me now, this is the perfect transducer for a jet ski. So anybody upgrading transducers, anybody buying a new unit, I'd definitely look at this 5200 for a jet ski. And then sort of in between, we've got the 83200, which this thing stood the test of time. This used to come with a hook 4, didn't it? The Elite 4.
Correct.
But this is a fantastic transducer, and again, perfect for a kayak, perfect for a jet ski. I'd definitely recommend this transducer. So that's just sort of the basics of them, the size of them, and as we go on with these shows, we'll get more into detail why you would actually use these types of transducers.
Cool. Daniel Groh, one of our big supporters of the live stream and that. Dan, thanks so much for always watching and supporting it. He's got a question here. Has anybody ever thought of having 2 fish finders on one transducer, or is it not possible? And he follows it up by saying, and how about a twin transducer on one bracket to avoid drilling holes on the ski boats, could that be done?
Okay, so when we look at HDS, we've got 2 dedicated chirp channels on an HDS. So effectively, we could run 2 transducers at the same time if they're not chirp transducers.
Yeah.
So we could run on an HDS. You could run a 83-200 skimmer on the one channel, and we can run an active imaging 3-in-1 on the other channel. And we can take that and then connect 2 HDSs via Ethernet cable, and we can share that information across.
Okay.
So, and on the TI, we can have 2 TIs next to each other. They talk wirelessly to each other. So you can have one transducer plugged in and both can display it. So we've got the options of running multiple transducers on one screen.
Okay.
I've got on the jet ski.
Have you?
Yeah, I've got the 3-in-1 and the 83-200.
And how
You've
does
got 2 channels.
I mean, how does that improve your fishing with having that on board, Mick? and
Yeah,
using
good
that?
question, Kirk. Mine was more of an experiment because when the 3-in-1 came out with the side scan, I was blown away with it. You know, you see these images of how far, John? 60 meters either side, is it?
50 meters, yeah.
150 feet,
100.
so 50 meters outside.
50 meters either side of your vessel, you can see. It's not great in rough weather, rough conditions, but I've experienced where I've found things inside the back line while I've been trolling along
Unreal,
40 meters away from the back line. I've found structure
yeah.
inside the back line.
So
Okay,
if you're trawling along the back line, you can almost see what's kind of in the mid-break type thing.
100%,
Yeah,
you can see
yeah.
it, definitely, yeah. I found some structure at Umkomaas where I fish often.
Yeah.
But then I've got the old reliable 83-200. I know that transducer, I can read it. I think Byron mentioned earlier, I can drop a sabiki down on a calm day. I can see those 6 feathers and I can see a mozzie pick
Baitfish
those,
coming.
yeah, pick those
Unreal.
feathers up.
I mean, yeah, guys, that's also what we were talking about earlier. We were just saying, you know, to your application, I mean, how much more do you want to see? I mean, you know, if unless you like crabbing in the Bering Sea or something, that you know that difference is gonna make or break. I mean, the reality is, I mean, if you can see your sabiki going down, I mean, the unit is working and it's going to show you anything that you want to catch as well, because you're obviously working to catch something bigger than a sabiki. So I think that's key.
Yeah, and what we would use it for specifically is like 200 kilohertz is a good repetition of the bottom.
Yeah.
And sometimes the guys want to concentrate on the bottom, but they also want to see what's in the top 40 meters of water. So then we go for a medium frequency chirp transducer with a wide beam. So that means the arches, your definition and target separation is going to come through much stronger because the beam is so much wider.
Yeah.
So then we can run them side by side. We can have concentrating on the bottom and concentrating on the top water column for where the game fish would sit.
Yeah.
And that's where I would use 2 different transducers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Peter DeWitt has got a question here. Hi, gents. What is the best chart card to use for the East Coast?
I would say that's the Navionics East
Navionics.
Coast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why that's been tried and tested. We've run that for many, many years.
Navionics East Coast there, Peter.
But we got gold and platinum, haven't we?
Yes, we do. But that covers more area. It's not necessarily got more information. You know, that would cover the Seychelles and then the guys that are, you know, going just off the coast of South Africa. But the general chart that we use is an East Coast. That covers from Namibia to Beira and that can suit everyone's needs.
But on the old cards, John, you didn't get the 1 foot contours, did you?
Correct.
Now the gold card,
No,
you have
yeah.
got the 1 foot contours. So for me,
So you, get
You would buy the gold card, wouldn't you?
You can add the
detail,
fishing layer on top of your navigational chart.
Okay. Mick, let's move on to a bit of the maintenance side. This is something that is vitally important. I made the mistake when I first got into kayak fishing with regards to my finder and not maintaining it properly. Simple things like leaving it connected and taking the unit off, and then
Dropping the cable
ducking and
into-
having a chow and dropping the cable into the bottom of the hull of the fishing ski that's still got seawater in, coming back literally 2 minutes later and it's flipping green, and then you bug it. Tell us a little bit about maintenance and how best to avoid stupid things like that.
sure, Kirk. But before I do that, have you actually changed? Because you probably still do.
Yeah,
now,
it's
don't
still
you?
the same.
That's what I was looking at. I was trying to get last week. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
go through. I'm Lawrence's best customer. Go through a finder every week.
Yeah, 100%. Look, let's get real. When it comes to the investment you've made, it doesn't matter how much you've spent on it, you've got to look after these units. It's electronic, it's going in the ocean, salt water is a conductor of electricity, so you've got problems straight away there. It might be easier if I just said, I'll tell you the best way to destroy a fish finder. Put it on your jet ski, your kayak, or your ski boat. Don't switch it off and leave it out and let salt water get all over it. Guaranteed that thing's finished. Okay? So the reverse of that is, once you've got it installed, I'll go back to how to install it in a minute, but once you've got it installed, you don't necessarily have to take the head unit off. In fact, my experience is if you don't take it off, disconnecting and connecting the head unit, it's actually better for the unit, because you might trap some salt water and then plug the unit back in. So if you're in a safe environment, your jet ski or your ski boat's in a garage, don't disconnect it. But you must disconnect the power source. So if you've got a jet ski, turn the dual battery off. If you've got a kayak, pull the fuse out. Don't fit a switch. Don't put another switch into the system. It's just something else to break down. Pull the fuse, okay? And that's disconnected the power. But as soon as you come back from fishing, spray salt away on. Get the salt off first. Dunk anything you can, the head unit, the battery, the fuse, anything in fresh water. Get rid of it. And then when it dries, a shameless plug for Lowrance Dolphin Spray. This stuff is fantastic. Dolphin Spray. Spray that on and that'll get rid of any excess salt water, what you've got left over.
And
So
you can, sorry, Mick, you can spray that into your card readers, you can spray it onto the back of the plugs, into any of your electronics, your switch panels, anything that, anywhere there's electrolysis.
It's brilliant stuff, that.
Even when it's new, yeah. Spray it in before the corrosion starts happening. Spray it straight away. Okay, so let's do a little bit of rewinding. So when it actually comes to installing the unit, if we rewind a few years, the actual power cable was copper cables. So if you dip them copper cables in salt water and it conducts electricity, you get black death, do we call it, John?
Correct.
Black death. So it starts at the connector and it'll go up the cable, and before you know it, it's up to the power cable. Lo and behold, come your fishing day, you plug it in, no power. Okay? So we don't want that. So the power cables now have got what you called tinned copper. So the silver. They're not copper coloured anymore, they're silver. So because we've got that good power cable now, I'm going to pick on this brand because this seems to be the bad one. Some of these red fuses here, when you cut the wire, these are copper. So now you've put a weak link into that system. So if you join this to the battery, you've started that corrosion and that black death's going to go up to the power cable. So if you've got this type of fuse, cut the wire and just make sure it is silver, and then you're good to go. But what you really want to do is fit the original Lowrance one, what came with the unit. This is proper tin cable. Put a nice connector on the end, these waterproof connectors if you can get them. And then from this end, right to the power cable, you've got tinned all the way down. That's going to save you lots of heartache. Okay. Another little thing you can do is a bit of this silicone grease. That's the brand I use, but I'm sure there's plenty more out there. So put some of the silicone grease on the connectors as well. That also helps you out. Oh, there's another product on the terminals, this thing. What's it? Battery terminal protector. That also is a good protector as well. Okay. Now the actual joining of the cables, what I said to you there was these connectors. These are special, like original equipment, Yamaha, Suzuki, all the manufacturers use these. These are great, but you need special tools to crimp them. So if you haven't got them, what's a great alternative, this brand here is Simple Solders. These are tiny little, if you haven't seen these things, guys, I'm going to actually open a large one. These are little connectors. Can you get a picture of that one? These little connectors have got a bit of solder in the middle. So what you do is you push the wire in from each side, or you can push the wire through and twist it, and then pull it back. And you heat it up with a gun or a lighter, and it actually solders the wires together, and then the color code on the end, so blue for thick wire, red for small wire, actually water seals onto the wire. So you've got a total waterproof connection just by applying a bit of heat on it. So these things are absolutely fantastic.
They're coming with the Lawrence power cables.
Yeah,
yes,
we-
yes, the
we-
Lawrence put them in with
Yeah,
it.
we supply
So I saw
a packet
last
of 3
21,
with
yeah.
every unit that goes out the shop.
Yeah, so with a new unit you're getting these, but if you're putting a new power cable on or you're upgrading a unit, please go back and put them on as well. Okay, for the kayak guys out there, you can actually spoil yourself even more because Kirk mentioned there when he was in the kayak, we've all done it, you buy those little lead acid batteries, that thing falls in the water and you plug your fish finder in, and next thing the power cable's corroded, the unit's corroded, you're back giving John grief that this unit's not working. And in reality,
What did you give? No one gives John grief.
No,
Have you seen the
yeah, by the way, I've
size
seen
of
the
it?
size of this
I
guy.
actually wish Brendan was here sitting right next to John there, so we could actually see a size of it.
But I'm even scared to come now.
Yeah, every time he moves his hands, I'm ducking out the way.
Yeah. He also takes charge of the what do you call it when the Oaks have problems? He fixes all the problems. He just arrives at the door there.
He's a fixer. Yeah, okay, so back to this. So the kayak guys are spoiled now. You don't need to use those lead acid batteries. If you invest in one of these, this is a Nokwa power pack. This is 10 amps as opposed to a normal little 1.2 or 1.4 amp battery. This is 10 amps of power, guys. This will run, I would think, a HDS reveal for a couple of fishing sessions, you know, without charging the thing.
A hook reveal.
Sorry, a hook reveal.
Yeah, it won't power up on HDS.
Yeah, don't power the HDS. Okay. So what we've got with this is a totally water sealed battery. It's wrapped in silicon and then a nice little pouch to keep it in. Then we'd have a waterproof connector from here to the power cable. So we've got end to end waterproof. What more can you ask for, guys? If you want to hassle-free fishing,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about. Little batteries might be cheaper, but in the long run, they're going to cost you money through time, and you're just going to get annoyed with them. This thing for me is my personal one. I must have had it 6 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I've had mine also a long time as well, 3-4 years.
You can power GoPros with it. You can power all sorts. You can charge your phone up. They really are a good product.
Just on
Kirk
that
hasn't
product.
broken it.
No, exactly.
If he
Yeah.
hasn't broken it,
Yeah,
it's
if he
top
hasn't
of the
If
range.
it's Kirk proof, that thing, should be selling like hotcakes. And just on that Noco battery, we were up in Sodwana for the first part of the show. I had that thing, I think we were up there, 4 or 5 days, 5 days. I charged GoPros every day. I think I charged probably 3-4 times a day, those GoPros, and cell phones off it, every day for 5 days. I then went to when in between St. Lucia, we went to Belito, fished there, used that Noco battery to fish there for a full day.
Yep.
Then went to St. Lucia, Belito, fished there, used that on my kayak. Then went to St. Lucia, used it on my kayak there. Then another day of charging GoPros, and then it only went flat. So the battery power for those smaller operating it's incredible. Like,
And there's a lot of accessories that can come with it.
Yeah.
That you can purchase with it. You can have Y cables with USB chargers and everything fitted to your ski.
yeah, I've got that.
everything
I've got that
hidden,
USB. They are honestly, I cannot rave about those things enough.
Yeah, I think a good benefit, like John said there, you can have a waterproof switch with a Y piece. So anybody who's fitting a battery operated live bait pump, you've got power to the pump and you can switch it on and off. So
Yeah,
it worked great. Another thing I did recently as well, guys, somebody asked me, would it power a VHF radio on a jet ski? So I tested it and I run it, and I think I got about 7 or 8 hours before it started going anywhere near flat. So if anybody wants an emergency backup for a VHF
amazing,
radio,
yeah.
that's your boy.
Yeah, I just think even outside of fishing, that thing is something that everyone should
Yeah,
have.
definitely. I think you must
It's
use
great.
it. You
Yeah.
must use it
Especially
for
with
other
Eskom,
things.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with it coming out. Mick, on the radio side of things.
Yeah.
Just briefly touch before we finish off with regards to the units and the radios that we were talking about earlier.
Kirk, I'm glad you mentioned that. Just one thing, guys. If you are a follower of Lowrance products and you buy a VHF radio, there's no problem. You can use that radio. It's got the GPS is built in. You've got a top of the range product. But what a lot of guys are doing is with a lot of electronics, they look at it and they say, how much is that radio and how much is that radio? And the cheaper brands have got a radio, a VHF radio, where the GPS isn't built in. And the retailers are saying, I just wire it to your fish finder. It's actually great. You can do that. You can wire it to a fish finder. However, the fish finder has to be able to accept it. It has to have a NEMA outlet. So some of the units haven't got that. So if you're going to go down that route of buying a VHF radio, you need to make sure that the fish finder you match it with, or more importantly, the GPS you match it with, is capable of linking to it.
On matching that quickly, a question that came through, transducers to units. One of the guys asked, can you match a higher quality and sort of a better quality transducer to a sort of low end range unit?
I'll take that one from you. You can, but it doesn't make sense, because there's no point in putting a 1 kilowatt transducer on an Elite TI which has only got a 600 watt output. So you're losing that extra 400 watts by doing it. So it doesn't really make sense. You rather go and match it with the maximum that unit can handle.
Correct.
Okay.
It's like a GoPro 7 we were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
So you can get different memory cards, but it only transmits a certain speed. So you put 2 memory cards on top, it doesn't improve anything on it. You're just paying more for the card.
Yeah.
So you can pay more for the transducer but get the same effect at the end of the day. Yeah.
Kurt, can I answer that in a slightly different way? Because somebody asked me a similar question today. And the question was, and it's revolving around, I think when you get asked the question, it would be cost related. Can I save some money by using the transducer I've got? Probably to the way you asked the question, the other way around.
Retrofitting.
Sure.
Yeah. So because this 7-pin, is it? Blue plug.
That's the 7-pin blue
Yeah.
plug.
So this 7-pin blue plug has been about quite a long time. Guys are using quite a long time, a very long time. Guys have used these transducers, and a bit like I said earlier, I'm so confident with that 83200, I want to stick with it. So when I bought the HDS Live, I want to keep that thing and I want to plug it in. Because we've got 2 ports, a 7-pin and a 9-pin port. So what the chap, and you know you are, asked me today was, he's not picking up bottom, the question we asked earlier. And I asked him, what transducer have you got? And it was an old transducer. And he said to me, what shall I do? And I said, upgrade it. And we'll discuss your type of fishing, what you do, what you're going to use it for, as to what transducer, I'll recommend for you. But the bottom line is, the analogy I would use is, you've got a brand new LED TV, which is your fish finder unit. You are asking me, can I plug my VHS from the 1980s into that unit?
Betamax.
Yeah.
And my answer is, you don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Does that explain it?
Yeah, 100%, Mick. I think loud and clear.
Okay.
And sorry, just to add to that, a transducer does have a lifespan.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, a 83-200, a 50-200 skimmer, when you're talking 600 watt, that's 4 to 5 years. Then those elements inside, those crystals start breaking up inside the elements. And you can see that on the screen. Your bottom definition is not as great as it used to be. Your fish targets are not. Then it is time to upgrade anyway. So I'm not a big fan of retrofitting old transducers because of the lifespan. So depending on how much you use it, but generally 4 or 5 years, swap your transducer out, get your clarity back.
All right, guys. So we're gonna call it off there for the evening with regards to this section of Fish Finders and Electronics with Lawrence. We're going to be doing this once a month as a series on electronics, specifically focusing on your fish finders and your GPSs and your chart plotters and all that sort of thing, because we feel that it is a subject that needs to be expanded on, and we've got a lot of content coming, guys. So make sure you tune in for that. Just on a couple of things, obviously 1st of October, a lot of our borders are opening now. So guys, our tours are back on for Mozambique. We'll give you more information. If you guys are keen on any tours with Go Fish up to places like Mozambique, I'm not too sure about Madagascar and Seychelles and all that sort of thing as yet, but definitely they are on the cards for the not too distant future. But Mozambique, definitely, we've still got Lazarus and Primaries that we can still do this year. Get in touch with us. We've got some incredible tours lined up. Then just running through the structure of the show, don't forget that on Monday night, we've got the St. Lucia series kicking off at 8. So part 1 of the St. Lucia series is kicking off. There's some incredible fish there caught by Ali. We caught 1 or 2 bonnies, but it's mostly Ali is punishing the fish there up in St. Lucia. Baptel, France, with a couple of the other boys there from the Yamaha crew, which is really, really lucky to see. There was a lot of interesting stuff that went on there that weekend, and 1 or 2 very sore heads that came away. So
I'm so happy that I wasn't there.
yeah, I'm sure you would. So guys, catch the show at 8 on Monday night, the St. Lucia series part 1. Then on Wednesday, we've got that pro tip. We've got this last pro tip that we did this week with Byron and myself, which was like a little kuta tip or game fish tip, fishing for fish when they're not eating as aggressively as normal. It's a lovely tip to put into your arsenal. Thursday night, we've got the weekly wrap-up. Friday, we've got the wrap-up of the highlights for the highlights package of the live stream fishing for the week. So make sure you tune in for that. That's also going to be loading tomorrow night as well. Guys, from myself, a big thank you to Lawrence, to John and the team, Steph in the back as well for sticking around. Appreciate it. But John, thanks so much for sitting in and lending us your mind, bro. I know you've been blowing a lot of minds there on the other side of these cameras, and we look forward to many more to come. Mick as well, big thanks to you as well, Mick. Thanks for coming up from UMCO.
Anytime,
I'm
you know that,
we'll
mate.
we'll see you soon as well. BK, thanks
Very much.
Dr.
Guys,
Bud.
don't forget, please, go to Go Fish TV on YouTube. Go follow us there. It's we're loving the support, and thanks so much for all the good wishes we get from you and all the interactions. Give us the questions there, especially on electronics and that. The more questions you give us pre the shows and that, the more we can align in the shows to make sure we cover the info that you want us to. It's your show as much as ours. So, but thanks so much for the support. We're loving it, and yeah, awesome. Thanks very much.
100%. Like BK says, the show is for you guys. Put forward the questions. We will answer the rest of the questions that came through on the feed tomorrow. We'll get John and Mick onto those, and they can answer them for you, and we'll send them back onto that feed. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Big thank you. We'll see you soon. See you next Thursday for the Go Fish weekly wrap-up. Cheers.